I'm joined now live in the studio by Tzipi Hotovely, the Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom. Welcome.
Hello, Nigel.
To GB News. Good to see you. Some very dramatic news out in the last few minutes that 300 people have been killed in a hospital that was struck by an Israeli missile in Gaza. That's been confirmed just in the last few minutes. I want to get your reaction to that, please.
So, first of all, every human loss is a tragedy, and we definitely, in this war, and it's a war, we don't target civilians. So when those type of things happen, and again, we need to check and investigate because, as you know, Hamas is still firing rockets in our cities. So there is still a chance that it wasn't IDF. But I'm just saying, this is a war that Hamas started from this horrible massacre that happened in October 7th. I think everyone is still shocked in this country, in Israel and around the world, from the atrocities were exposed that Hamas did. And as we speak, there are still 199 Israelis, including children and Holocaust survivors, grandparents, that are kept hostage in Hamas hands, that we all need to call together, bring them back home. So this is the context where this war started by Hamas, and Israel is now fighting to defend its people. So I want to check what happened, but I'm sure, and I can guarantee you, we never target civilians. We never target any civilians.
Hamas certainly did, and there's no question about that, and you're right to use the word atrocities that were used on that day. Of that, there is absolutely no question. That Saturday morning was truly, truly dreadful. But you know, we're on the verge, we believe, of not just rocket attacks, not just military strikes, but potentially a very big military move, tens of thousands perhaps of Israeli troops going into Gaza with a mission to seek and destroy the terrorist organization Hamas. But there will be, as there always are in these situations, civilian casualties. And you know, this is now a humanitarian crisis in Gaza as well as a military operation, is it not?
It is, and there is a reason to it. And the reason to it is because as much as Hamas is dangerous to Israelis, it's also dangerous to Palestinians. And if we want to have a better and a safer Middle East, we need to make sure Hamas won't be the effective controller of Gaza Strip. And we've seen what Hamas is capable to do, and we have seen no moral values to this barbaric terror organization. And after we were exposed by its true face, the fact he was documenting those horrific actions, he was documenting him burning alive babies. We've seen that. So this is the kind of cruelty and evil Israel is facing. Now, Britain was part of international coalition fighting ISIS. Britain was there in Iraq and Afghanistan. Britain was there to fight the Nazi regime. And I think more than any other country in the world, you can understand what terror attacks mean.
So do you find the calls...
this is why I'm saying this is hard, it's complicated, but we need to remember who are the good people in this situation. The democratic country who's trying to defend its children versus those barbaric people that are using their people as human shields.
But you're being urged to use restraint. You know, the United Nations, all the international bodies are saying to Israel, you must use restraint.
So I don't think there is any other army in the world that is as restrained as IDF. And I know some people were saying, seriously? I mean, look how bad things are in Gaza. But why things are bad in Gaza? There is a reason to it. Because I think actually this is something many people don't know, and this is why I brought this with me. Underneath Gaza, there is underground tunnel city. This underground tunnel city, every single tunnel costs $3 million to build. Just IDF exposed over 30. So it means $90 million from international support were invested by Hamas to build this underground city of tunnels that is doing only one thing: producing terrorism. This place is the place where it has all the ammunition, all the rocket, all the fact that still 6,000 rockets being fired on Israeli cities. And this place is underneath a very populated place. So think how complicated it is. And we are trying to give them the option
to have
a safe shelter.
I understand that. I understand it's very complicated. I'm just saying that, you know, it is restraint is what's being urged, although many would argue...
You know, I don't know many armies in the world that alert people before they come to attack. This is against every rule of war to have a surprise to your enemy. But we lose that, and we tell Hamas that we're about to attack just in order to keep the civilians safe.
Now, the money you mentioned is very interesting, because President Joe Biden is going to Israel tomorrow, and he's said some very positive things about your country and about support for Israel. And yet, I wonder how much Israelis will be celebrating Biden's visit tomorrow, because he did more as Vice President of America in freeing up tens of billions of dollars for Iran. Hey, he even freed up very shortly $6 billion more for Iran with the hostage fee that was paid just back in August. I mean, is Joe Biden really Israel's friend?
I think yes. I think he's...
What, a man that funds Iran is your friend?
A man that stands with us in our hardest moment is our friend, just like Prime Minister Sunak, that I really hope to see him coming to Israel.
Well, Sunak's going to come on Thursday.
No, what I'm trying to say is definitely we're happy to see this international support, and I think there is a reason to it, because we share the same values, because we're all democracies that are fighting for the freedom of our people. And this is why we see such a great international support for Israel's
Well, he may be
actions.
supporting you now, but Joe Biden has misread Iran.
I think this is a good argument to take on a different time. This is a serious war that we need to win with Hamas, and we know that Hamas is supported by Iran, but I think Israel was very clear about Tehran's duty on this, and I think we should concentrate on the fact that our southern border is not safe at the moment, and we need to make it safe.
Now, Rishi Sunak is going to come to Israel on Thursday, and there is no doubt, we discussed it before the break, his use of words like pogrom. He has been incredibly supportive.
I agree.
Of Israel, as indeed has the British government in its entirety. There's no argument about that. Even the King, and the royal family have said things that you certainly, as the Israeli ambassador, would be very happy with. But there are other parts of British society that you may be less happy with. There was an Israeli demonstration outside, a Jewish demonstration outside the BBC last night. They still won't. Oh, a gunman in Brussels, that's a terrorist act.
Right.
But the murder of 1,200 people and Hamas are not classed as terrorists. How do you feel about the BBC?
So I think if the BBC wants to stick to its values, which is accuracy and telling the truth, then there is something really wrong about looking at a terror attack that, nothing can be more clear than what Hamas committed on Saturday, October 7th. I mean, all the world never has seen such a terror attack, filmed and videoed and broadcast almost. So I think the BBC should think whether it stands for its values.
Well, they say they mustn't take sides.
Oh, well, I think by not calling them terrorists, they definitely take side. And you know what? Not the right side. Because if you want to stand with democratic values like Israel stands for, and when we are fighting a pure evil, this is a very clear decision, an easy one to make. And I call the BBC, it's not too late. This war is going to carry on. And we are fighting terrorism, that nothing can be more clear than this terrorism. BBC call those terrorists in their name.
Yeah, it isn't just the BBC. I mean, the Football Association. Tonight there's a big football game. England v Italy, one that matters, qualification for the European finals, and the Wembley Arch, which we light up for France when there's a terrorist attack, and we light up, for LGBTQ rights when the World Cup's going on in Qatar, but they're not going to put the Israeli flag up tonight. How do you feel about that?
So I think I'm disappointed, because it's so clear that this is the right thing to do. And I think, personally, my heart was really happy to see all those blue and white coloured buildings. Whitehall was putting Israeli flags.
No, the government have been fine.
No, what I'm trying to say, it means a lot for us, this showing of solidarity in our hardest moment. So I think when people in this country show solidarity with Israel, they stick to the values that you stand for as a country: democracy, freedom. Think about this music festival. Was those young people were killed in? We still have people that were kidnapped to Gaza from. But
there is a change in this country. It seems to me that a change has happened in this country. I just mentioned the Football Association, the BBC. It was interesting. Charlie Peters, who's our correspondent in Tel Aviv throughout the last couple of weeks, said to me that he talked to British people who feel safer in Tel Aviv than they feel on the streets of London at the moment. I mean, do you feel that this country now has a problem with its Jewish population?
Well, it's definitely something that I hear from my Jewish friends about the fact that there is a rise of anti-Semitism, and we cannot, put like a dark spot on it. This is how it is. There is anti-Semitism. We need to call it with its name. And the fact that some Jewish parents didn't want to send their children to Jewish day schools, I think it shows how much people are really intimidated from this type of terrorism. Now, I trust 100% the government actions to protect us, including myself. I'm protected here, and I know they do everything to protect every Jewish individual. I met Home Secretary yesterday, and she was very much committed, just like the Prime Minister. And I think the issue is, how do you deal with the fact that some people are publicly supportive of those atrocities by, saying horrible things in the streets of London?
Well, there were many of them on Saturday in the streets of London, and indeed in Edinburgh and Belfast.
So I'm totally for freedom of speech, and Israel definitely knows how protests look like, and we are definitely for that. But we need also to make a big difference between freedom of speech and hatred and incitement. And I think some of those things are hatred and incitements, and you need to think that when we are fighting this war, this is also your war. Because if those people are against Israeli values, they're against British values.
It's ironic. It's ironic because, if you go back to the Russian...
Hamas is against British values. This is what I mean. And this is why it was proscribed in this country.
Well, I think our values are being confused, and that's the point I'm making. But if you go back to Russia, Germany, Austria, I think of all the countries in the world, probably the UK has been the friendliest to Jewish people having real problems coming in.
I can definitely say how much Jewish people...
Even the Balfour Declaration.
Absolutely. You have a lot of historic credit.
You
have a lot of historic credit, but also I think the friendship never been closer, also on a military and a defence cooperation. And we can see how much the UK today stands with Israel on all levels. So you can see that
at a governmental level,
we are sharing intelligence.
At a governmental level,
sharing...
Sadly, not through our institutions in quite perhaps the way that it used to be.
But I'm here as an ambassador. I can tell you that the biggest challenge is actually people that are at the moment a little bit confused and thinking it's just another round. It's not. It's a war. And this war started in the most brutalic, barbaric way of attacking innocent people and children in their beds. And I'm telling you something as a mother, because I really care about loss of life. I mean, I don't want anyone to lose his life. But there should be a clear distinction between a country that fights for the freedom of its children and their ability to go, just freely without being afraid that a terror will kidnap them to Gaza, and between those horrible people that don't care about their own people, the Hamas leaders, the Hamas terrorists, the people we are after. So Israel made a very clear aim to this. Hamas won't exist with political capabilities or with military capabilities after we finish this war that Hamas started.
Well, that is the Netanyahu promise, absolutely.
Yes.
And finally, yes, I mean, you're here as an ambassador, but you're here as, you said, you're a mother, you're a human being. What's been the personal effect on you of all of this?
I think it's dramatic. I think no Israeli will have his life back again after October 7th in a way that it's not about just winning the war. It's really fighting for our existence and for the fact that every parent will feel that he can protect his children. And those parents, my visual is those parents sitting in a shelter calling for help. And the fact that so many young people lost their lives trying to help them because there were so many of them, the terrorists. Many people try to understand how come Israel, that is so powerful, failed here. And the answer is we had so many heroes fighting this fight, but there were so few in front of so many. There were 2,000 terrorists walked into our border, walked into the living rooms of individuals. And, the protection groups, there were just few of them. And this is why we need our army strong at the moment to fight this fight against Hamas capabilities, because we never want to see those type of things again.